there's a lot of people starting to wake up to the fact that there's something wrong with our national documents, the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence. And it's a difficult situation to explain to people who haven't studied this for a long time. People that don't know law, people that also do not know the Bible. They've got way too much studying to do to catch up to this, to be brought up to speed in any reasonable fashion to understand what's really going on. I will do my best to try and explain it, and then you can take the research from there and break it down. There is a problem with the documents. It is for real. And so this is going to be kind of difficult to understand. There's several nuances here to try and picture all at once, so I'll try to do it all at once. But understand this, there are problems with all three documents. When you understand these documents, who wrote them, which on our website you can see who wrote them. You can see Freemasons basically did most of this work. Most officially in the Constitution itself, you can see actually a video we have called Hidden Faith of the Founding Fathers under a page called Freemasonry, Hidden Satanism, if you want to go there and watch this video by Christopher Pinto. Excellent work too, by the way. And you can also understand that the Puritans, prior to these documents, had some fascinating insight into the Scriptures thanks to the Reformers, who realized that the papacy was Antichrist. I've known this for many, many years, but people around the world are starting to wake up to this fact that, yeah, we have to relearn again that the Reformers were right. We've been hoodwinked again over the past couple hundred years during their damage control programs, trying to hoodwink us right back into the same enslavement system they almost had completely in place before the Reformation began. Okay, the three documents were basically null and void because they were never really officially put into place in the first place. And that's hard for a lot of folks to wrap their heads around. But let's take you back to 1492, and I'll start with one interesting document. A lot of you remember back in high school, you were taught that Columbus discovered America. Of course, we all heard other rumors that, Leif Erikson and the Vikings did a pretty good job of coming over this way a lot. And, of course, now we're understanding there's a lot of people that have traveled across the Atlantic to the Americas from the eastern continents. But let's say that this document in 1492, if you remember, that was the year Columbus sailed. This document was from Ferdinand and Elizabeth, the King and Queen of Castile, basically the territories of Spain as we know them today. And it was a document basically granting, and I'm paraphrasing here, granting Christopher Columbus established admiralty jurisdiction over his territories that he was, quote, going to discover. That Christopher Columbus, after having discovered and conquering the said islands and continent, shall be our admiral of the said islands and continent you shall so discover and conquer. Well, he's conquering them for Spain. Spain, though, is under a Roman crown franchise. Now, some of you that saw our video called Revealing the Crown of the Beast saw how the British crown is not really British after all, but a leased or a franchised crown from Rome. And then when you understand how that works, Spain was just another franchiser of that same crown, where Rome was expanding its Roman Empire even throughout our pretended time when Rome was supposedly falling apart. Well, they know better than that. They make it allow it to look like they're falling apart. At the same time, they only strengthen their backbone so that when they come back up out of the mess, they've got twice as much strength as we expected them to have. So Christopher Columbus then gets this document. He goes to the New World, 1492, plants the flag of Spanish Admiralty in our soil, in our shores. This is why it's pushed so hard that we are to recognize that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Now, it's not for us as peons to understand it. They could care less whether we believe it or care about it or know it or not. But it's important for all the men in business and merchants to understand this who are getting close to Masonic connections, because they have to realize that the Roman Catholic Church has right over the whole world. They own all the property on the whole planet according to them, okay? Now, a lot of you are saying, well, it's just a piece of paper. Rome's a bunch of thugs trying to say that they own everything. Who are they to tell everybody they own everybody else's land? Well, Let me give you an illustration. It doesn't matter. The paper means nothing until it's backed by something, which is, what a lot of us would call enforcement. Okay? If I were to walk into a bank with a piece of paper and said to the bank teller and the manager, I now own this bank, just, relinquish all the money and gold to me, and I'll be on my way. Well, the bank tellers and the bank managers would probably just laugh at little old me, right? And laugh me silly out of the building. Well, I'd go home, and if I were the world's leader, I'd come back with about a dozen fully armored tanks, about 20 personnel carriers full of military people carrying AK-47s, flamethrowers, missile launchers, and I'd surround the building and then go back in with my little note and say, excuse me, sir, I'd like to present this letter to you again. This is our document claiming that we own your bank. Take a look outside. There's a lot of people here that agree with me. And he'd take a look out all his windows and go, oh, man, are we in doo-doo here? And wouldn't he then be a little bit more agreeable to hand over everything in his bank, pack his briefcase and take off? I think he would. Okay, this is kind of how it works with Rome. Of course, it's done a little bit more clandestinely, a little bit more quietly, so that the peasants don't find this out. Because they don't want the peasants finding out. They just want the middle-of-the-road leaders, the puppets, who like power, to understand this, because they've liked power themselves into a position where now they're in trouble. They found out what a mess of quicksand they've gotten themselves into. So they got to be the dirty men to do the work. All right, so getting back to the documents themselves. When you realize that a previous document was in place in 1492 prior to all three of our documents, we could still say, well, yeah, but we still signed our agreement thinking we had it. Well, that's all well and good too. Don't forget, to us, doesn't matter if it's a piece of paper. Do they have the world's money and the world's military power to tell us, I don't care what your paper says? Right. So even if we say we have a constitution, let's say we should turn around and rewrite a brand new one, it still isn't going to do a lick of sense for us unless it's enforced with something. Well, the world knows that the people of the United States are sort of the key. It's sort of the keystone of the success of all this. If they could get America to fall, they can get, of course, the rest of the world to fall, because we have become basically the military power and the enforcement arm of the world. We were the police state, in a sense. So in a way, they have us now. They have a gun to our neck, call it what you will. It doesn't matter paper-wise whether there's a constitution that's official or not. They have all the firepower because they have all the gold and the money. The Bilderbergs, through like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they've all consolidated their monies through one entity called Rome, the Vatican, the beast, which is what the Bible talks about. Of course, backed by the second beast, which is the United Nations industrial military complex. The enforcement power is tremendous. Any little person that tries to get out of this mess, they just squash them like a bug. This is why I keep telling all these law people across the country, we need enforcement power. The only place it's going to come from is from our Creator. And when you understand, they also lied to us about that because they knew that was going to be the way we could get out of this. We need to fix that. We need to get back on our knees, repent, face all this, do it the right way, get them back on our side. I love you all. We got to get back to this. This is Dwayne, Biblical Correctness Ministries. Bless y'all. Bye-bye.
Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends, but neither shall endure to the end the same shall be saved.